In this other section of the version of PPP, we shall be discussing relative purchasing power parity. Now, relative PPP simply states that the exchange rate between the two countries must proportionally change to reflect differences in inflation rates between two countries. So, in this case, it focuses on inflation rates and not on absolute prices, price levels, or CPI. No. So now it is thinking about what a flow variable such as inflation rate, not a stock variable like price level. So inflation rate is simply the percentage change in what the price level over time period. So in other words, we need to know the inflation rate rather than the price level for us to analyze relative purchasing power parity. So let's consider an example. Simple. Suppose that the rate of inflation in Japan is 2% in 2011, and the rate of inflation in Germany is 5% during 2011, the same year rather. So, we want to know by how much percent should the euro, Japanese yen, change according to PPP, such that the condition of PPP or the law of one price will continue to hold. So you have the two inflation. Inflation for Germany, 5%. Inflation for Japan, 2%. So in that light, the change in exchange rate according to relative PPP is given as change in nominal exchange rate is equals to high inflation minus low inflation. Simple as that. High inflation minus low inflation. So assume the high inflation is 5% in Germany and the low inflation is 2% in Japan. So the change in nominal exchange rate is simply 5 minus 2. So it gives you 3%. Therefore, the exchange rate between Euro and Japan should change by 3% to reflect the difference in the inflation between the two countries. So it is only when the exchange rate Euro per Japan changes by 3%, given these two inflation rates, then the law of one price or the condition for purchasing power parity will continue to stand. So another example again. So assume now the exchange rate between the Ghanaian cedi and the Gambian dollar is initially $19 per cedi. So initially we've known the nominal exchange rate between the Gambian dollar and the Ghanaian cedi to be $90 per one cedi. Now, according to purchasing power parity, if the price of traded goods rises by 5% in Ghana and 15% in the Gambia, what is the new exchange rate between the cedi and the dollar? So in this case, the inflation, which is by how much percent the traded goods rise, in Ghana it is 5%, and in Gambia it is 15%. So, want to know um, how much is that exchange rate changing by, and what will be the new exchange rate between them. So, the solution takes this formula. If you want to determine the new exchange rate between two countries, so it is the ENER, AR refers to the expected, that's the new nominal exchange rate. It's equivalent to the current nominal exchange rate between them, which is 90 times parenthesis 1 plus the change in nominal exchange rate, which is high inflation minus low inflation. So basically, for you to know the new, it is the current exchange rate plus the change in the current exchange rate. So if you add the new plus the changes, it gives, but if you add the old plus the change in the old, it gives you the new. So if you plug in the values, 15% is simply 0.15, 5% is simply 0.05. Then the expected or the new nominal exchange rate is 99. But what is 99? 99 is simply $99 per cedis, because initially it was $90 per cedi. So now it is $99 per cedi. So by how much has this exchange rate changed by? It has changed by $9. Do you understand? So in other words, the exchange rates should change by 10% for PPP condition to continue to hold. So lastly, but most importantly, you always have to understand if the nominal exchange rate has changed relative to the difference between the two inflation. So which currency should change? I mean, should depreciate or appreciate? So you go back again to our example with Japan and Germany. So if you look at that question, the Japan um, inflation rate was 2%, while that of Germany was 5%. So it simply means 3% difference. Since Japan has a lower inflation, then Japan will see an appreciation of its currency, the one by 3%. Now, since the German currency is the German country relatively has higher inflation, then its currency should depreciate by 3%. So that is it. So the country with higher inflation will experience depreciation. Then the country with lower inflation will experience appreciation. This is simple to understand. Now, whenever a country has higher inflation, it means that its goods and services are more expensive. So the because its goods and services are more expensive, then people will not choose to purchase there. So because they are not purchasing from it, exports will decrease. And when export is decreasing, it means there is no foreign exchange, not enough foreign exchange. So the demand for your currency will fall. And when the demand for your currency falls, it leads to depreciation. Conversely, if your